15 minutes to Mr. McCormick.
Okay.
We wanted to get all three of us up here. I'm Thomas Tessero. I work voluntarily with the National Congress of Fathers and Children. To my left is Jeffrey Dick with Fathers for Justice, and to his left is Michael McCormick, National Director of the American Coalition of Fathers and Children, up from Washington, D.C. Madam Chairman, I was going to have a PowerPoint presentation, but due to time restrictions, I would like to possibly show that at lunch. It's by one of the children of the members in our Pittsburgh chapter. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Members of the committee, Madam Chairman, we appreciate it. The proposed legislation currently on the table, 418, 463, and 1639, will any one of those bills will greatly affect the fathers that I talk with on a daily basis in the Pittsburgh area. And I speak as a position of an ordained minister who currently is working as a registered professional engineer in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I have several years of pastoral experience behind me, several years of marital counseling experience as well. And as far as I'm concerned, the culture of custody in Pennsylvania definitely needs to be changed. In the trenches, we see it as an exploitive, misandried atmosphere that really tends to separate fathers from their children when there's no real need to do so. I will offer critique really on House Bills 418 and 1639 towards the end of my 10 minutes. And what I mainly will say is offering support for presumptive joint custody in the bulk of my comments. We know, and it's been mentioned already, the damaging effects of fatherlessness around us in the panels that have preceded us. Research shows that fathers' presence in the lives of the children is the single most important factor that determines whether or not children will be successful. This factor overrules socioeconomic factors, ethnic and geographical factors, race and religion. Children with a father do better than children without a father. And children from fatherless homes, as was already said, are far more likely to commit suicide, become teenage mothers if they are girls, run away, have behavioral disorders, commit rape, drop out of school, and are end up in state institutions or prison while a teenager. Compared with the children who are in the care of two biological parents, children who are in the care of a single mother are 23 more times likely to be seriously abused so that they will require medical attention, and 73 times more likely to be killed. Children are regularly taken from fathers in Pennsylvania. Despite statistics knowing that children don't do as well with the presence of the father, despite those statistics, nearly 2 of every 5 children in America do not live with their father, and the courts continue to award primary custody to mothers with the result that 2 years after divorce, 51% of children in sole mother custody homes only see their father once or twice or never at all. Now, statistics from the court's website and from the National Institutes of Health boil out that about 61,000 fathers are removed from the lives of their children every year in Pennsylvania. I think that is a staggering statistic. And I can just tell the committee how that statistic was derived. 2 months ago, November 2009, the Census Bureau reported that mothers account for the majority of single custody parents, about 83%, while fathers account for only 17% of single custodial parents. Proportions that are statistically unchanged from 1994. In Pennsylvania, currently over 660,000 children live apart from their father in mother-headed households, despite the fact that children raised by fathers do better in 20 measured areas compared with children raised by single moms, including academic progress, social competence, psychological health, and physical health. Over 100,000 children each year are added to the ranks of fatherless children, according to the statistics given by the state unified justice system and the statistics from the National Institutes of Health. 100,000 additional children are added to the ranks of those who are fatherless. And if children are affected in dramatically negative manners because they are taken from their fathers or fathers are taken from them, then it is almost unconscionable that we would not address that system in some assertive fashion. It's been my experience in Pittsburgh that the women initiate the majority of family dissolutions. Contrary to myth, I find it's about 80%, and what the research also shows. In every case in which I'm familiar, the female initiated the separation and the divorce, often without warning to the partner, and in several cases, the women were involved sexually with other men prior to and after separation. And one of the biggest complaints that the fathers that I counsel with say that the mother obstructs their custody, their kids. Contrary to the deadbeat dad, and the fathers, as I see, are not abandoning their children. My experience is that they're driven from the child's home by their mothers or by the courts, who would rather have dad just disappear. And that, in fact, is the most frequent reason given by fathers for their disengagement from their children. It was the obstruction of paternal access by the children's mother and her desire to break contact between the father and the child. Women are freely admitting to that obstruction of custody. In one poll, 40% of mothers reported that they had interfered with the non-custodial father's visitation on at least one occasion, and that was to punish the father. I find it deplorable that we force men to pay child support in the manner that we do, but we do not give them access to their children. I was just in contempt of custody court 2 weeks ago, and where I had initiated a petition against mother because I was not getting informed of the children, when the children were informed in emergency situations. And the hearing officer said to me, so what if she's in Kentucky? So what? What's going to happen? That, Madam Chairman, members of the committee, is one of the key factors that needs to change. Building off what Justice Baer said, we need to punish contempt of custody in a similarly effective way that we punish non-payment of child support.
Mr. Tessera, you're 8 minutes into your 10 minutes and you're on page 3 of 11. So keep in mind what you want us to hear in the next 3 minutes.
With all due respect to Justice Baer, I do think that the high conflict cases are the cases we need to address, but I do not think that we can address them through legislating cooperation. I don't think that happens. I think we can address the high conflict cases by enforcing the orders that are in place, removing the incentives to divorce, and in the arena of custody, we need to remove the incentives of power and leveraging the children. And we need to change the venue from a battle arena where there are no battles to a path with well-defined boundaries so that the parents can walk along that path in the best interest of the children. I think presumptive joint custody removes the incentives for divorce. It preserves the constitutionally granted liberties that the courts recognize. I think presumptive joint custody also reflects an accepted federal mandate for presumptive of child support following the guidelines. With the rebuttal presumption, I think all of the concerns with the domestic violence law can be handled without a problem. If there's truly domestic violence at issue, that can be rebutted. And I would also like to say, building off of Justice Baer's comments, that if presumptive joint custody isn't going to work, then I think if we're going to default to primary sole custody of one of the parents, the research clearly shows that children do better in primary father custody homes than they do with primary mother custody homes. So if we're going to default one way or the other, we ought to do it in a manner that's backed up by the research and has empirical evidence behind it. And I know that's not popular with very many people. However, the mothers will stay involved with the children. The children will have access to their fathers, which we know is very important. And conflict has been shown to be decreased in father custody homes. So I would like to offer further critiques on 1639. I think the notice is far, far inadequate for move-aways. We need to have much more notice in 30 days. You can't even get a lawyer in 30 days and have grounds to defend yourself in 30 days. I think it ought to be 90 days, frankly. So there's other lots of things that are in my testimony